Hey, it's time to crank up the truth. I'm Val Selby, and over the decades of working online, I've learned a most important lesson. Mindset owns your business. If procrastination, imposter syndrome, and a lack of focus have been blocking your biz, then I'm here with Val Full Volume, ready to help you see choices that you're making. Get ready to own your personality and use your expertise to create the business of your dreams. Now is the time to make changes and live your best life. So let's get to it. All right. Welcome, everyone. So I'm super excited that we're going to have the first guest on Val Full Volume. And it's kind of appropriate because we've been trying to have this conversation for a little while. And it just hasn't quite worked out, but it's working out today. And I know I need to have this conversation with you from a personal standpoint. And I know clients of mine as well are going to just glean so much information from you. You are coming into my circle at the perfect time. So this is Tara Hayes, and she's from Panic to Picnic. And I am excited to have you here. And if you could tell my listeners a little bit about yourself, please, or not. I don't know why I say a little bit. Tell whatever you want. Floor is yours.
Well, my name is Tara Hayes, and I'm the author of Panic to Picnic, How to Find Your Own Personal Path to Peace of Mind. And this journey started at a low point in my life. I was fired from 2 jobs within a 10-month period. I said I needed to figure out who I am and what I wanted to do. Instead of going into another accounting job, I needed to do some soul searching. And I was always interested in the online world, and I just didn't know how to break into it. So I came across an ad one day, and it was for self-publishing. I said, oh, self-publishing, that sounds like something that I could do or something that's interesting. So I didn't know what topic I wanted to write about. I just started brainstorming. And then after the brainstorm, it was to write about things that you're interested in. So I said, all right, well, I've had anxiety my whole life. So I was like, that might be a good topic to write about. I self-published that book the first one was called From Irrational to Rational, How to Find Your Own Personal Path to Peace of Mind. I self-published that book in December 2019. And then from that point on, I decided I wanted to continue helping women in a different way, like that had anxiety, introverted women like myself. So after I published that book, I said, okay, I need to maybe start branching out more. And I developed my author page, and I developed my Facebook group. And honestly, I was afraid. I was like, nobody cares. I was at that point. And it took me I think it took me 3 months to actually post about it. Because I was
wow.
I'm just going to post in these author groups to really understand, because they're authors too.
Mm-hmm.
So say we're like-minded. So it took me actually 3 months to have my author coming out of my Facebook profile and say, hey guys, I'm an author. And everybody was supportive at first. They were like, oh yeah, congratulations. But then you figure out that the journey gets lonely, because a lot of people don't understand. You don't understand unless you're an entrepreneur yourself. Mm-hmm. So that's how my journey began, and how Panic to Picnic began, and how my website came about. And it's really about my self-love, self-healing journey, and which is why it's called Panic. From you have all your panic, and then you get to your picnic, which is your peace of mind and your purpose and everything. So that's the journey began.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that that's why we were connected. However, I don't even remember. I think it was during some event, and then, I asked you for event and all of that. however we were connected, but I usually teach and train from my experience. So I think that was one of the things that did attract me to you, and getting the information is, you're not just spouting out of books,
right,
of what you might have learned at school or something like that, which there's definitely a place for that. But the fact that you've been in it.
Exactly.
And, coming up with my new anxiety that I'm realizing that I have, knowing from working on growth stuff, it's not something that's just going to go away. It's going to be something we have to work on constantly, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a lifelong journey. I mean, even I still have it. And then I feel I would be hard on myself for still having it, because hey, you have a book where you have panic, how to get from panic to peace of mind. But just because you write a book or just because you do these things it's a daily, it's like a muscle. Like you have to work your muscle. If you want to work out, you have to do it every day. So it's the same.
Yeah, we were just talking about that because I mean, I know in my head, intellectually, I know that I need to do mindset work and it's a constant thing. But then it'll still trigger into my head. Well, you know how to fix this. Why aren't you fixing it for yourself? Which is why I also have my own coach. Because fixing ourselves is ridiculous. Let's not. Let's not think that we can do everything alone. We need workshops. We need books. We need outside people to help us work through. And it doesn't matter how much we know all that information. We still need the help through it.
And I had a hard time accepting that. It's like, how are you going to need help when you're helping people? But that doesn't mean that I don't need help just because I'm helping other people. Like there's different stages. Like you might be on a different level than I am, and I'm on a different level than you. You know, that doesn't that I don't need help. And it took me a while to understand that, especially like I just like recently lost my father. That's how we connected, because I saw you had an email, or I think my email about and then you replied. And then I went back through your emails and I saw that you went through something with your father. So that's how we connect. And when I lost my father, you know, I got anxious, you know, which is a normal response. And I was like, what are you doing? Why are you being anxious? And I wasn't allowing myself to be human. Yeah. But I have to realize that, you know, just because I'm helping people through it doesn't mean I don't go through it myself.
Yeah. And I think that word human is so key. Because I almost feel like because we're in certain areas of expertise, we're like, okay, well, we're not allowed to not be that expertise. And it's like, well, no, every single person is human. So we're not going to be at the top of the game every single second.
And I was holding myself to that standard. Oh, I have to be this all the time. But even transparent, like especially on my Instagram, I'm always transparent. I'm always like, even through my transparency, I'm showing a solution. But maybe this time it's okay for me to not be okay. Maybe I don't have to have a solution all the time. But I wouldn't tell myself that. But now I'm allowing myself to, you know, to feel that mood, you know.
Yeah. And I was talking to Tara before, because this is just perfect for me right now, because I'm really becoming aware that at this time, I have an issue with anxiety. My mind keeps wanting to go back and go, have you always had this issue and you just haven't dealt with it? And I was just like, how about we don't care? How about we just care that it's right now? So I'm looking forward to some tips. We're definitely going to go into that. But one thing I've had to lean into, and I've been using the hashtag do it scared.
Exactly.
Because I would get stuck in the analyzing why or how can I get rid of it? And I'm like, you know what? It just needs to happen.
Right. And I love that. Yeah, definitely do it scared, because that's exactly what I was doing. Like I was scared to even post, you know, I was scared to post about anything. And then I got to a point where I'd slowed down. I wasn't like, during my grieving period, I wasn't posting at all. So then I was like, well, how am I going to come back? You know, and I remember just do it scared. And it's to be afraid. And I was like, well, everything I've done so far to get out of this comfort zone, I have to do it again, you know? So
yes. Like, yeah. Oh man. Yeah. No wonder why you started laughing when I mentioned that.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I would like to do speaking again. And I was on stage in 2019 and I was just like, oh, this is, worked through that first time of getting up there. And now here we are 2.5 years later, almost 3 years, coming up on 3 years from that last time I was on stage. And it's like, do I really want to have those brand new feelings again of doing it the first time all over again? Because you don't usually do first time experiences again.
Right.
But we're just in this like weird world where all of a sudden so much stuff is new. And that's kind of what I wanted to like lead into with the anxiety, is because so many of us are back in that. Even if we were doing live events, how can we start that process of figuring out, well, do I really not want to do this? Or is it just comfort zone? Or
I think actually it's just comfort zone. because like I've done podcast interviews before, but it's like every time I get to one, it's like, oh my God. Like as soon as I sat down, like before, when I start my ring light and everything, I was like, oh my God, there's another one, and then I just, I just did it. I was like, okay, just take some deep breaths and then you'll be fine. You'll feel in the fear and do it anyway. So I like, and like, everything, like you want to speak, right? So everything you want is on the other side of. That's another slogan I like.
Oh, yeah. Everything I want is on the other side of fear. Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah. Okay. Tag that one. That will be in the show notes. Definitely. Oh, I love that. Because that is so true. And why I've been trying to push through and just do it scared is because I really feel that right now, the reason I'm scared is because I'm in the right direction.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Like, I have a business partner and he tells me, he said, I think you have a fear of success, like a fear of failure and a fear of success. Mm-hmm. So, like, you really want it, but then when it happens, you're like, oh my God, and I keep it up, like all those, like, I think it doesn't matter how far you go. It doesn't matter how long you've been into it. Like all those fears they're going to surface no matter what.
Yeah.
I think it's just like a daily thing, speaking to your mind, speaking to yourself, like knowing your value, knowing your worth, knowing that you're capable of your fears. We're here right now in this podcast. I could have been afraid and not come, but I'm here. So,
no, I know. And that's been part of my anxiety too, which I'm just like bopping myself in the head. Often it's just like right before I'm going to do a podcast. It's like, I did a podcast for over a year, another one. And it's like this, but now all of a sudden it's just like, should I just cancel? I should just cancel. I'll just do solo shows from now on. And it's so ridiculous because when I get in the conversation, I mean, there's always so much information and it's so fun.
Like right before, I've done lives too. And then like before, like an Instagram live, before it's like, oh my goodness, how am I going to do in this live? What am I going to say? Am I going to know what to say? It's all those stuff. And as soon as you get in there, you have so much fun. Like you just.
Yeah. And it's, like I said, I don't know if I have the awareness of that feeling now or if it is new, but I don't like it. So then I'm constantly fighting myself over it. Like, this is stupid. Why are you doing this? And kind of beating. This is probably the first time that I start feeling like I'm doing that, beating myself up, which I've never witnessed myself doing it or been aware.
Right. So I did have like a framework that I was using. It's called RACE. So Race to Recovery. And how that came about was I used to jog every day, but now my race has changed. Like I still do exercise, but it's not a jog. So the RACE is RACE. So it's realize that you're having this anxious mood, accepting instead of like kind of accepting it instead of fighting it. So acceptance is what works. Accepting these thoughts, accepting what you're feeling right now. And then you challenge it. Like you said, you feel stupid. So why do you feel stupid? Why do you think that is stupid? Like what thoughts are telling you that you feel stupid? And then the exercise would be like the reframing. So RACE is realize, accept, challenge, exercise a plan to expel that anxiety.
Nice. I like it. And something that you can like, once you start getting the process down, I'm sure you can work through it pretty quickly.
Right.
Yeah. Once you're aware, because once we're aware, that's the big thing. So once we've got the awareness, then we can deal with it.
Right. You become aware and then you accept that. Yeah.
Yeah. Love it. Awesome. Okay. Yeah. Look at all this stuff that's getting tagged. All this information will be in the show notes, guys. For sure. So how did you figure out that you had the anxiety, or was there a point?
I had it before I even knew what it was.
Yeah.
I can recall being like a child, like maybe about 9 years old. And I had like this weird ritual where I would feel lightheaded. And then I would just put my index finger between my eye and I would just start like moving it back and forth. I guess that was my security.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was certain situations. Like, I guess I had like a fear of heights. So like when I was on a balcony, I felt it. And it was like situational then. I didn't know what it was. Like when I was a kid, it was like, okay, I'm off the balcony. I forgot about it. So that's my first experience I could pinpoint with anxiety. And then when I got into my teenage years, I realized I started having more anxiety, more situational, like in school, like whenever there was like a bomb threat and we had to go outside, or also the bleachers, like, because they were kind of high. So like, we're actually looking back and thinking about those situations. I was like, oh, well, that was anxiety. And also a lot of it had come from low self-esteem. I think negative thinking, like I didn't have like a positive influence in my life at that time, like during my teenage years. And I didn't have any self-care, self-love, any of that. And I think all that can contribute to having your anxiety lessen. So I believe that is, I discovered I had anxiety when I looked back. And when I was writing my book, when I looked back and I was like, oh, this point in your life, you had anxiety. So it was really at a point where I didn't realize what it was.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's ironic that you mentioned the heights, because sometime after having the first child, which I was 22 when I had her, so I was still young, I realized that I did have the fear of heights starting, which was really weird to me because I've always loved roller coasters and all of that. But then I never shared with people like how bad the heights were. It was just always my thing of, cover my head, it was like the funny thing. And nobody realized that when we were going to go skiing, because we did family ski trips for a couple of different years, that first trip, before that first trip, I'd barely get any sleep for like 2 nights. Because all I could think about, all my brain would be doing is going over and over again, how to get on the lift safely, how to get off the lift safely, how not to fall off the lift while we're a million, all of that. I would have panic attacks and I'd have to force myself down the hill that first trip.
Right.
So yeah, the panic attacks and all of that. So I guess technically I've had it for a long time, just not in certain other situations.
So like situational. And it's funny how you said roller coasters, but I love them too. So like that's good people afraid of heights, loving roller coasters.
Yeah. I figure it's because I'm secure, because usually you're all strapped in. So it's like, all right, I'm safe. Nothing's going to happen, even though I'm like watch Final Destination. So yeah, I know. But yeah, it's probably just that comfort zone of having the safety net around you when you're on the roller coaster that, I enjoy the heights.
Right.
Just fine. Even though I'm like freaking out still. Yeah. I'm like laughing and freaking out at the same time.
Yeah. And for me, like for a long time, I didn't even get on roller coasters. But then somehow I was like, I'm going to get on. And I just got on and I really enjoyed them. And I think like with the height thing, I think that because a roller coaster is like a thrill and you're on the height, but for so long. But if I'm sitting like in a bleacher for like an hour, then I start panicking, Yeah. Still, with the roller coaster, it's one and you get on and you're done. So.
And I think that is a key as well for like what we were just talking about, both of us getting on the podcast, and we're just getting that anxiety happening. But then once we're here, I mean, that's the situation that we pull back from, or I try to pull back from. It's like, okay, I know this sucked. It was hard to push yes and let her in and all of that. But then once we're having the conversation, it's like, oh yeah, this is why I'm doing it.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is the positive of getting through that yuck.
Yeah. And I saw your website, your visibility, like I saw, and I was like, I wouldn't think that you had anxiety. Like to me,
right?
Perfect.
See, and isn't that funny? And I don't say this as in I think that people expect me to be perfect, because I know that that's not the case. But it is hilarious, because there's been so many times when I've done the episodes or I've done something and I think it's like the biggest flop ever in the world. And it'll end up being the one that everybody's going, oh my God, that was so amazing. I connected with you so much. And I'm like, in my head going, but that one really sucked. It's like we judge ourselves so hard,
right.
So hard. And it doesn't matter that I work on my mindset and all of that. It still just pops in because we're human.
Exactly.
So you've got the race that people can do. How would you put that into place? Let's just be even like specific before you're going to go on a live again. If you're going to do a live on your Instagram, how would you talk yourself through that?
Well, how I would talk myself through that is I would realize what I'm doing it for. So realize that I'm going on this live because I want to spread my message of Panic to Picnic, and I want to help somebody who may be afraid, who may need a voice. So they could see the normal person. I'm just me, just Tara. And they could see that if they can do it, I can, they can do it as well. So I'll just go on and I'll accept whatever I'm feeling right now. I might have a little anxious stomach, which I do have right now.
Right.
Maybe sweaty palms. Okay. Accepting that this is what I'm feeling right now. And I'm not running anywhere. I'm staying. And the challenge would be to actually go on. Like the challenge would be to actually stay on the live and interact with whoever's watching. And also maybe nobody's watching. So the challenge would be to stay on there and not care. Deliver the message that I'm here to deliver. And whoever sees it, fine. And the exercise is being there, staying there, like I said, like the challenge. So the exercise is interacting with the audience and, and not getting nervous about it. Or I can be nervous, but not really showing it. Like I've watched lives before and some people are like, oh, I'm waiting for people to come on. You don't do that. It's like, you don't wait for anybody. You go.
Nice. And I love how you started out. What you remind yourself of is that you are there to help somebody. And I love that you kept it singular.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that is one thing that does help me at times is that there's somebody that needs to hear that. Somebody. There might only be one person, but that one person's life, you never even know that you touched and you helped. So I love that you did that because that's also like your ideal client, your ideal customer. You're talking to that one person because they need what you've got.
Right. And all it takes is one to help, and then it'll turn into others that you help. But you just got to start with one, with the other.
Yeah. And sharing your expertise.
Right.
And that definitely knowing what your expertise is, that definitely helps when you're going to go on lives and, podcasts and all of that, and coming in with exactly what your message is, because it's something that you can talk about without notes, without me sending you questions of what we're going to talk about. It's like, yep, we're talking about anxiety because I've lived anxiety for how many decades. And
yeah, exactly.
I know it like the back of both hands.
Yeah, it's still like you said, you never stop learning. You never stop learning what could help it. There's always different tools. Like I was doing, I don't know if you heard of emotional freedom tapping, like where you tap your pressure points.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been doing that. Like if I tried that, I guess a year or so ago, and I was like, oh, I don't like this. So then, but then I gave it another try. It's like you're tapping and you're speaking, like you're reinforcing the negative. Like, oh, I might feel overwhelmed right now. But then the more you continue tapping, you're like, maybe it's a better way. And you start speaking like that positivity. So like, there's always like, it's basically finding what works for you, which works for the individual. But there's always room for growth, always like personal development is always changing. So it's important to continue growing, basically.
Yeah. I know one thing that I've had to address for myself is I'm like, okay, well, this has always worked. So I'm going to do it this way because this has always worked. Instead of looking at something going, it's okay if it's not working anymore. I can give myself permission to try something else, to try the tapping. Like you said, you tried it before and it didn't do anything. But then you tried it again and it did work. It's like, just be open to trying other options if you're not getting the result.
And I'm the same way, Val. It's like, I have sometimes where I'm stuck in doing things a certain way. It's like, oh, I've done it this way, like exactly the same way. And then I think, well, maybe I can do it differently this time. Like even like when I'm driving, it's like I go the same route every time.
Yeah.
So maybe I could take a different route.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody likes to get lost, but I think like even changing something as small as that, like changing maybe you go home, or changing up, like if you exercise, like an exercise routine. Like I get stuck in the same exercise routine too. I'm like, I'm going to try something different this time. Like the other day I was working out with my sister. She said, oh, you like to do this one all the time. Why don't you try another one? And I was like, oh, I don't really want to. But then we tried somebody else and it's like, okay, I like it.
Yeah.
So
it's funny how something like that though could even like trigger, and I'm not saying anxiety, like extreme anxiety, but just a little bit of but that's different. Not today. Not today. I'm just going to walk on the treadmill again.
You don't have to do everything Tara's way all the time. Like find a new way, so.
So just curious, do you find the more you try little things, does that help with your anxiety? Or have you even noticed?
Sometimes I'll try, like for a little bit, I was having trouble sleeping, especially when my dad passed away. I was having trouble sleeping. So I was trying the essential oil, like people said, oh, that works. And then I was like, okay, I like the smell of it, but it's not putting me to sleep. So I was like, oh, this isn't working. It's like my mind is like, oh, I'm going to try this, but it's not going to work.
Yes. Yes. Because you've already told yourself it's not going to work, right?
Exactly. So it's like some things do work and some things don't. But how I was able to get back to sleep is like letting go of the rigidity. Because at first I was like, oh, I got to turn this off at 11. I got this. I got to be off my phone at this time. I'm like, yeah, stay on my phone as long as I want.
Yeah.
That really helped. And now I'm sleeping better. We were talking about awareness and acceptance earlier. Like that and accepting that, oh, maybe I won't sleep and not freak out about it, and that's now I'm sleeping better.
Yeah. So, give yourself permission to get up. It's like, there's midlife stuff. It seems to be this thing where we'll wake up in the middle of the night and it's like, then I toss and turn and I fight and it's like, God, it's just going to happen. Why don't I just even go to bed at 3 instead? And it's like, how about I just give myself permission to get up at 2:00 in the morning and stay up if that's going to be a thing.
Yeah, if that's going to be it. Yeah.
and it's like, as soon as I gave myself permission, it's like, oh, okay, maybe we can go back to sleep quicker then.
Go and become aware and don't worry about it. It's like you pass out.
Yeah. Instead of making it the bigger deal in the head, like it's the end all be all. I'm getting so good at that now. But I'm working on that. So Tara, are there any other tips that you or anything that we'd like to share with my listeners?
I would like to share also like that journaling has been a big one for me. Whenever I'm feeling anxious, maybe like it doesn't even have to be formal. I do have like a Etsy shop full of journals and, about positive mindset and also about positive mindset. Wow, I can't think of my journals right
now. Gratitude. Yeah. All the good stuff.
Calm down journal. Like that'll give you tips on how to calm down and become aware like of what you see and what you hear, like the mindfulness things, cheat sheets and everything. And I don't even use those all the time. Like you don't have to be formal with it. Like you don't have to be rigid with it. Like you can just pick up your phone and type. Like sometimes when I'm anxious at night or I'm thinking of something, I'll just write something real quick on my notepad on my phone. Or maybe I'll just get a piece of loose leaf paper. I feel like not just for anxiety, but for clarity, for your goals, like all that. So I think journaling is like a really big part of it. I'm an author, so my goal is to help as many people who want to self-publish and share their story the same way that I did, So like my tagline is, I help introverted female entrepreneurs gain clarity, peace of mind, their purpose of time, power and life and style via journaling and self-publishing. So that's basically what I wanted everybody to know.
Nice. Love it. And, along with the journaling, because for one thing, when I'm journaling, I have to be very, very, very aware because I will start journaling and I will be writing the journal stuff like I'm going to publish it, like the world is going to see it. So I'm not being honest with myself. And I know that was something I had to become aware of and stop. It's like telling yourself lies kind of thing. I'd be like writing down. It's like, no, this is what I should be writing down. This is not actually me journaling what I'm feeling.
Never really experienced that where I felt like I couldn't be. Well, I guess maybe there's something that I wouldn't write down or haven't written down. But for the most part, I'm really like transparent in my journal. So I feel like, I guess that's like my safe place.
Yeah, you're step ahead. I'm in awareness and you're a step ahead. And you're like, no problem doing it. I know I was that way back in the day because I had journals all through high school. Tons of journals, like notebooks and notebooks and notebooks of journals. And so it was really weird when I saw that was happening. Like all of a sudden I was writing stuff in my journal and I'm like, this is not what I'm feeling. So how do I expect this to help? I'm like projecting what I should be feeling instead of writing about it. And I know that's always a trigger for me, not trigger's not the right word, a flag for me that I'm hiding from stuff because I'm a sharer. So, like you wrote your book, you're a sharer. You want to talk about your story and probably the more you talk, the more it helps. I'm going to assume.
Right.
And I've actually leaned into that with my husband more as well. Like when my anxieties, like getting over stupid stuff, the stupider the thing, like going to go do a recording. If I'm feeling anxiety about that, I will just go up to him and go, okay, I just have to verbally puke all of this out. I'm like, I don't need you to say anything or anything. I just have to get the ridiculous out of my head. Like, and that has helped me a lot because then he could just laugh about it. And then he remembers stuff like that. Like me, it's already out of my head and gone kind of thing. He'll remember that for some kind later. Okay. So remember how you were feeling when you're doing that, and how dumb you said you felt and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, you're right. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I've leaned more into sharing when my anxiety started.
Okay.
A lot more, I guess, is basically where I was trying to go around. I know you share your anxiety stuff with the world, but do you share it much with your close circle?
Yes and no. Like, I feel like they're not understanding. It's like, especially when I wasn't able to sleep, it's like, oh, well, just go to sleep, Yeah. I've talked about it with my closest circle, but I feel like they don't really understand it. Like, you have to through it. Like, there's some people, that I've met like over the years with jobs that I've had. And, the more you start talking, you find out the more people that were on antidepressants,
Yeah.
So it's like talking about it then. And the difference now is like, I'm not really afraid to talk about it. Like before I was like, oh, people are going to think that I'm crazy. And when people read the book, like whenever there's a new set of eyes on it, I'm like, oh my God, I like this. It's like I go through the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
So, but I feel that being more vocal about it has definitely helped because back then, like, oh, I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm not going to tell anybody I had to go to therapy or I was on antidepressants and all that stuff. So I'm never going to tell anybody. But now I don't care. It's like there's somebody else who needs to share, who's afraid to share, or who needs to hear me. And they need like a way for them to get the courage to share. And maybe I'll be that person they can look to that say, hey, she's sharing now. I can share my stuff. So
excellent. And oh my gosh. Yeah, that's the way to end this episode right there. That is honestly the way, because if you don't talk about it, then other people won't talk about it. And it takes courageous women like you to get over the anxiety and get over the being scared and freaked out and worried about everybody judging, shaming, any of that stuff, so that more people can talk about it and feel more comfortable about it. So excellent. Oh my gosh, that's the perfect message right there. Thank you so much for being here, Tara. I appreciate all your tips. I'm going to be putting them to work for myself. And I know that there's a lot of introverts on here right now listening too. So, I mean, look at Tara. She's an introvert and she's doing all of this stuff because when you have a passion for it.
Yep, exactly. Who cares if you're introverted if you have a passion?
Thank you. I needed another introvert to say that because I'm an ambivert. So technically I don't count, but I have introverted clients. And this is the point that they get to also. It's like, okay, I might be introverted in other areas of life, but this is my passion and this is what I know I need to do.
Right.
Which means we have to get over what we're called, right?
Right.
We're labeled. Perfect. Okay, that's going to end this. I'm going to have all of your show notes or your stuff in the show notes so that they can come and find you. Go get your book. And I'll thank you so much for being here, Tara.
Thank you so much, Val. I had so much fun.
Thanks for listening to Val Full Volume. I can't wait to talk with you again, and I'd love to bring you more information even quicker. So if you are ready to move past your crap and be less in your head, I'm ready to coach you. An excellent first step is joining us in the Boss Mindset membership. You can find it at valselby.com/join-membership. That's valselby.com/join-membership. Now go out there and create the biz of your dreams.